day, Internet. We are out here on top of a mountain today to take a look at the 2021 Royal Enfield Himalayan. New updates for the 2021 model are slightly shorter kickstand, switchable ABS, two-tone paint jobs, and hazard lights. So those little things, you know, those are pretty nice, but not major upgrades over the previous model. Even the switchable ABS I don't find too useful for the environment you're going to take this bike in. Handy to have, not necessary. But let's go around the bike and look at all the accessories that I've put on it, and we'll talk about ownership after 1,000 miles and what I think of it, what I like and what I don't. So let's get to it. So what the Himalayan's got is a 411cc single-cylinder air-cooled engine that produces 24.5 horsepower and about 23 foot-pounds of torque. And while that might be the same horsepower as a moderately powerful 250, the torque is where the business is at. You get off this onto a 250, you'll feel the difference in the torque, even though horsepower up on top is about the same. But its bread and butter is made putting around dirt roads and mountain terrain and things like that, and that's where the bike was designed to run. And for what it's designed to do, it works really well. And having said that, it's no highway cruiser. You can get on the highway for shorter stints, and you can do it for longer if you're willing to be relegated to the slow lane. Let's put it that way. I can run this 65 to 70 miles an hour all day long, and it's fine. Over that, it starts getting a little bit, you're pushing the engine a little bit, and I've even noticed a little bit of instability at those speeds. Approaching 80, above 80 miles an hour, it starts to wobble a little bit, and you're really wringing the engine out at that speed. And while the suspension isn't adjustable or anything high-tech, what I found is that it just works. Whoever set this up and designed the way these things are going to work together actually did a very good job. I haven't had it fail me in any situations where I've thought I need better suspension. And that might be due to weight and things like that too. I'm 200 pounds and 6 feet tall. So somebody heavier than me might have a little problem, and somebody lighter than me might have a little problem. But at my weight and for what I'm carrying on the bike, it's been working really well, and I'm really pleased with it because I'm not fiddling with anything. You do have an adjustment on the preload, but I haven't had to touch it, and it's just nice. It's just get on it and go. Now, the front brake has been a point of contention in a lot of other reviews that I've seen, and I think they're looking at the bike out of context. Sure, this is not going to do stoppies on you and things like that. It doesn't have that kind of power. But that's not the element the bike was designed for. It'd be like taking my Toyota Prius, down a double track off-road course and saying, oh, this thing's terrible because it performs off. Same thing happens when you take this thing on the highway or try to do high-end street performance with it. For its environment, the brakes actually work pretty well because you can grab a handful of it and not lock that front end up and slot wash the front end out. So it's a matter of keeping it in context of what the bike is designed to do and how things perform. In this environment, you wouldn't want, really grabby, double disc stoppies out here because you're going to lose your bike if you have that. So I think they did a really good job of actually matching the bike's brakes to the environment it's designed to be ran in. The fuel capacity of the tank is 4 gallons, and that's really nice to have. You don't have any fuel range anxieties and things with that amount of capacity, plus you have a 70 miles per gallon fuel economy, which gives you a long fuel range. It's about 280 miles mathematically. But I have found that there's no reserve when you run into low fuel. There's not a reserve that actually kicks in. There is a trip meter on the dash that will kick in and start counting up how far you've gone since you've hit the reserve in the tank. And I found that reserve to be about 1.5 gallons. Because every time I hit the reserve and then go fill up, I end up putting 2.5 gallons in. So I think that's a little big, and I need to do a full-on fuel run once the weather starts cooperating to see really how far this thing will go on a tank of gas. It's got a low seat height around 31 inches. And that is really nice to have for shorter people and even taller people like me because it gives you the ability to put your feet down when you're in slippery situations. And that's actually saved me from going down a few times. It's just that ability to put a foot down and prop it up. Because I'll mix my riding styles between standing and sitting depending on the terrain. And probably everybody should do that. If there's a risk of the bike sliding out from underneath me, I'm going to sit. And then that's where that low seat height comes in, and I can walk it through things. If it's just, you know, rough terrain and I need to be moving my weight around, then obviously I'm going to be standing up. So that's really nice. That low seat height is really nice. I also haven't had any trouble out of the stock Pirelli MT60 tires. They're low road noise, they handle well on the street, and even off-road in a lot of muddy situations. I haven't been stuck or lost traction any worse than any of my friends with more knobbier tires. So I am in no hurry to change those. Also, the stock seat, I'm really pleased with it. I find it to be pretty comfortable. A lot of people disagree, but I guess butt shapes and toughness of the rear varies from person to person. Then again, also on the road, you know, I'm going to stop about every hour or so and stretch out and take a break and things like that. I'm not just going to get on it and just go for 8 hours. If you're going to do that, you might run into trouble. I'm not doing that, so I don't have problems, and I do like the stock seat. I think it's very comfortable. It does get dirty. The texture of it kind of holds dirt and things like that a little bit. It's not as easy to wipe off as like a vinyl seat or something like that. So I like the stock seat. Not everybody does. Now, I have accessorized the bike for my needs and what I want the bike to do, and we're going to walk around and talk about all of those. And I'll put links below to everything that I've purchased. The first thing I've got up front is I have raised the front fender with these spacers here. Raises it about 10 to 15 millimeters, I believe. And I put on a headlamp guard so when I'm riding with other people and they kick up rocks, it doesn't bust out my headlight. And moving on up, you can see I've got a shorter windshield than stock. I found the stock windshield wanted to vibrate my helmet a lot, and that caused some issues, and I really wasn't happy with that. So I went with the shorter one to cut out the buffeting altogether. A friend of mine actually has the tall version of this, and we swapped bikes to see how we each liked it. And I believe the next day he ordered the Shorty, because I still got the buffeting even with the tall windshield. So that was a good call, I think, buying the short one, because it was a roll of the dice as to which one I would buy. And I went with the short one. So now my head is in clean air as opposed to turbulent air coming around the windshield. Next up, we've got double take adventure mirrors. These are really cool. I like these because they offer some versatility in a couple of ways. I have camera mounts that I can replace the mirror with. I can just unscrew this, pull the mirror completely off, put a mount a camera here, and get lots of different angles and things when I'm out riding. And since the base of the mirrors are also ball mounts, I can actually remove the stem of the mirror and move it around the bike, because I have this clamp that also has a ball base, and the stem of the mirror mounts there, and I can put a camera pretty much on any tubular, you know, position on the bike that I want. Front, rear, facing any direction I want, and that's a pretty nice thing to have. And another feature that this has is when you're standing on the bike, you can't see your mirrors. But with these you can. You can just angle them however you want, and you can look behind you while you're standing looking down. So off-road, I'll generally keep one in the normal sitting position and one in the standing position. That works really well. And for hand protection, I put on the BarkBusters Storm hand guards. I like these. These are pretty nice. I went with the bigger ones to block a little more air because I have the VPS on another bike, and I don't think they block air well enough. So for the colder environments, I went with the Storms, and I have an extra set of VPS plastics that I can put on these when it gets hot. I also have 12-volt accessory plugs, USBs on this side and a 12-volt plug on this side. And I really like these. I paid a little bit more for these. Actually paid quite a bit more for these because this is a pretty expensive setup for what you've got. But it's a complete wiring harness, and it allowed me to install this without cutting into the wiring of the bike. There's one vampire plug and that's it, and it just bites into the pre-existing wiring. So you got 12-volt USB, and there is an SAE plug on the other side for your battery tender or air compressor. And I've also installed an anti-vibration phone mount. This is pretty nice. Your phone sits inside here and it absorbs the vibration and doesn't mess with the stabilization on your camera, which I use my camera a lot, and so that was important. So I did bite the bullet and buy that. Wasn't cheap, but well worth it in my opinion. I've also got the Roto Packs cans. I've got 1-gallon cans on each side, one side for fuel, the other side for waters. I do a lot of moto camping and things like that, and it's nice to be able to carry extra water if you're not going somewhere that has a water supply. So these were kind of pricey to install. Like I said, I'll put links below and prices on everything, but there was like 3 pieces you ended up having to buy to do this. One piece was just for installing it. Wait, bear with. So there's one bracket you have to buy here that installs it to the front racks of the Himalayan. Then this piece comes with this round piece. It bolts to that, and then your can goes on top as such.
It's a funny squeaky sound.
Then you just tighten it down as necessary, and it squeaks. Okay, this is a pretty recent addition to the bike, and this is just a kickstand foot that mounts onto your foot of your kickstand, and it enlarges the size. And you can buy these, or you can even weld something on there if you wanted to. I bought this one from SRC. It's a little muddy, and that was about 50 bucks, but well worth it to keep your bike from sinking into soft soil and things like that. Because I'm on and off my bike a lot filming, and so I need something like this to keep it from falling over. I've also installed the Royal Enfield Panniers, and I really like these. And they're inexpensive in relation to other panniers, let's put it that way. And they are a little bit on the lower end, cheapy side. But I liked the size. I liked them. I didn't want the bike to get too much wider than the handlebars, and I think they look really nice. The fitment wasn't great. One side went on perfect. The other side, I had to end up using a block of wood and a hammer and a come along and different things like that to get it to actually fit. So they need to do a little bit of work on that. And they each hold 26 liters of storage capacity. I've got a camera bag in this side, and I've got snivel gear and some inner tubes and things on that side. Not bad. They are lockable, and they have lash points on top so you can mount things on top of it, which I do plan to use down the road. Another nifty item is this larger rack. The stock rack was pretty small, and I just did not like it at all. It was probably about this wide by the time I got to the rear. And so this allows you to space your weight out a lot more if you put a bag or anything like that on here. Because I have a large 60-liter bag that I carry when I'm camping, and it keeps it from drooping down or anything like that, or sitting any funky way. And I'd also like to mount a cooler to this sometime and put the bag across the pillion seat. Now, if I need to get in and out of my panniers a lot, I'll turn the bag lengthways like this and have it sit across like that. Because if you have it sitting sideways, you can't get in and out of your panniers. And I like the hard panniers because of their convenience. Because I do use this as my everyday vehicle as opposed to my car. And I take it to work, do everything, and getting in and out of these really quickly is really a nice feature to have. So depending on how often I need to get into those, depends on which way I'll orient the bag on the rack. Now, another newly added item is this Chase Harper tool bag. I actually didn't buy this for the bike. I've had this for quite a while, and it's just been in my shed, and I just threw it on there to hold some tools to keep them out of the panniers. So, pretty nice little bag. It's not waterproof, so don't put anything in here that you don't want to get wet. Now, I've also got a nice little muddy master cylinder guard right here that's covered in mud. And that's nice because this is sitting out pretty exposed, and you don't want a rock or anything to take out your rear brakes. So, nice little master cylinder guard isn't too bad. And your reservoir here is kind of exposed too. I might go ahead and put a cover on that over that at some point. Now, this might possibly be difficult to see, but right here where my finger is where the turn signals were mounted on the bike as new. And so they have to be relocated to install the panniers. And right here I've installed a couple of little blanks that cover that hole and keep that from looking, nasty. Those are pretty cheap, and not necessary, but I'm kind of OCD about stuff like that, so I went ahead and put those on. So now I've got these tank pads on the side here. When I first bought the bike, I scuffed the sides of the tank pretty badly with my legs when I stood up to ride off-road. So I assume that the clear coat on this paint isn't really strong. So I went ahead and buffed that out and fixed it, but before I took it off-road again, I purchased a couple of sheets of this material, and it just came in square sheets, and I had to cut it to shape and everything, and it wasn't easy, but I did it, and it turned out looking really nice. And they work really well, and so I haven't had any trouble since then. They stick well, and I've even bought a matching center tank pad to go with it. I just wish it was a little bit longer, but those worked out really well. If you can put in the effort to cut those and do it right, they look great and they work fantastic. And last but not least, I filled this little empty space here on the frame with this little clip. And that allows you to take a ticket or a receipt or something when you're handed it, and instead of fumbling with trying to get a glove off or things like that, you can just stick it in there and that'll hold it, temporarily. And that works pretty well. I actually rode home from a restaurant with a drive-through receipt stuck in there that I forgot to, because I meant to pull over once I got out of the drive-through to get my receipt out and put it in my pocket, and I forgot it, and it made it all the way home at over 65 miles an hour. So, the Royal Enfield Himalayan, greatest adventure bike ever made? Probably not. Most affordable travel bike ever made? Yeah, probably. Currently on the market, this is probably the most affordable bike you can buy that you can travel on just about any terrain for good distances. It's a good bike for beginners and experienced riders both. Beginners won't be intimidated by the power and things like that, and experienced riders will appreciate to be able to use everything the bike's got. Because it's kind of infuriating to have a bike that you can't use everything you got. So you buy a lot of horsepower, then you can't use it. Speed limits, whatever it is. Is it a good bike for commuting? Well, it depends if you have a lot of highway commuting and at high speeds and in a lot of traffic. If that's the case, probably not. But if you have lower speed commutes, yeah, it's a great bike. I drive mine every day to work, and I love it. I like the fact that it's easily serviceable on the road. When I'm out traveling and I need to service the bike, I don't have to make an appointment anywhere. I can do it all at the campsite and get it all done with just simple basic hand tools. And the bike's not perfect. I have experienced a few little minor technical difficulties here and there. The temperature gauge always read about 15 to 20 degrees hot, so I ended up relocating that under the seat in the document box, and that took care of it. Now it reads about 3 or 4 degrees hot, so that's much better. The compass never really worked. Mine constantly points southwest. There's some kind of weird magnetic field in this area of the bike that just messes it up, so I don't even look at that. The gauges tend to fog up a little bit. That's a bit annoying. I wish they would take care of that. And I've had the ignition switch freeze up a few times when it's really cold. You go to put the key in, you can't even get it in sometimes, and even if you do get it in, it won't turn, and you have to end up heating the key with a lighter and heating everything up to get it to go. So those are all just minor little things that I can deal with, for the price and everything like that. So I think what all the bike has to offer, when you look at the one thing that it can't really do, and that is extended highway travel at higher speeds, I think that's kind of insignificant when you compare what the bike can do for the money. And I don't really want to be riding on the highway all the time anyway. If I get on the highway, it's going to be for a short little stint to get from one road to another road, and I'll use the highway as a shortcut to get over there if I need to. Because I don't want to go down the highway, because frankly the highway is boring. Why would I want to get on the highway and just go travel in a straight line? That's not what I want to do. I want to be off the highway on the side roads, experiencing all the little things that the other people just don't see. You end up finding things that other people pass and don't even know it's there. I mean, I found a cave recently that if I would have been on the highway, I would have never known it was there, and I got to go in and explore it, and it was really neat. Because if I look back at all the traveling that I have done, the destination really isn't the part that I talk about when I reminisce about those trips. It's always things that happened along the way on the trip, and that's what I think the important thing is. And there is one destination that most people are trying to get to when they go out on their bikes and whatever they travel on. And I think that's probably the most important destination you can arrive at, and that's back home. I think this bike will get me out where I want to go, and I think it will get me back. And that's why I choose this bike for my travel bike. So, you guys have a good one, and I will catch you next time.